We wish Amanda's kids were our only grandkids. My mother said those exact words at Sunday dinner, looking straight at my 9-year-old daughter, Harper. I watched my baby's face crumble like paper in a fire. She ran upstairs, her sobs echoing through my parents' house. Everyone kept eating, fork scraping plate, my father chewing. Amanda smirking into her wine glass. My hands shook. I didn't cry. I took action. 3 days later, their lives started falling apart. I found Harper curled up on the guest bed upstairs, her whole body shaking with sobs. When I wrapped my arms around her, she looked up at me with those big brown eyes swimming in tears. "Why don't Grandma and Grandpa love me, Mommy?" The question broke something in my chest. I held her tighter, stroking her hair, trying to keep my voice steady even though rage was burning through every vein in my body. "They do love you, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups say really hurtful things they don't mean." But even as I said it, I knew it was a lie. My mother had meant every word. And Harper, smart girl, that she knew it too. "This isn't the first time," she whispered. "They always forget my birthday. Last year, they took Chloe and Aiden to Disney World, but I didn't get to go. At Christmas, their presents are always so much bigger than mine." My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. How had I not seen this? How long had my daughter been carrying this pain, trying to understand why her grandparents loved her cousins more than her? "I'm going to fix this," I promised her. "I'm going to make this right." Harper nodded against my shoulder, but I could feel her doubt. She'd heard promises before. From them. After I got Harper settled with her tablet and some videos, I went back downstairs. My husband Tom was helping clear dishes, his face carefully neutral. That was Tom. Always the peacemaker. Always smoothing things over. "I need to talk to Mom and Dad. Now." My mother looked up from loading the dishwasher, her face, a perfect mask of innocence. "About what, honey?" "About what you said to Harper. About wishing Amanda's kids were your only grandkids." Linda's eyes went wide. "I never said that. What are you talking about?" I stared at her, disbelief washing over me. "Yes, you did. You said it right in front of her. That's why she ran upstairs crying." My father, Frank, set down his coffee cup with a sharp clink. "B, you're being too sensitive. You always overreact to everything." "I'm not overreacting. You all heard her." "Tom, you heard it right." Tom shifted uncomfortably. "There was a lot of noise with the kids. B, maybe you misunderstood." I spun to face him, feeling like the ground was tilting under my feet. "You can't be serious." My mother started crying then. Real tears streaming down her face. "How could you accuse me of something so horrible? I would never hurt my granddaughter. Never." My sister Amanda spoke up from where she'd been sitting silently watching the whole thing like it was dinner theater. "B, Mom would never say that. I think maybe you misheard. The twins were being pretty loud." Her husband Brad nodded along. "Yeah, it was chaotic. Could have been anything." I looked around the room at all of them. Every single person was gaslighting me, making me question what I'd heard with my own ears. My mother was still crying. My father comforting her with his arm around her shoulders. They were making me the villain. "You need to apologize to your mother," Frank said, his voice hard. "You've caused enough drama for one evening." "I'm not apologizing. I know what I heard." "Then I think you and Harper should leave," my mother said through her tears. "I can't be around someone who thinks so little of me." I grabbed my purse, found Harper, and we left. The whole drive home, my daughter was silent in the back seat. Tom drove, his jaw tight, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. When we got home and Harper was in bed, Tom finally spoke. Maybe there was a misunderstanding. "There wasn't. B, your mom was really upset, and everyone said they didn't hear it. So I'm crazy, is that what you're saying?" Tom sighed. "I'm saying maybe we all need to calm down and talk about this when emotions aren't so high." I went to bed that night feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. But I wasn't going to let this go. I couldn't. Harper deserved better. The next morning I started researching. I spent hours reading about family dynamics, narcissistic parents, golden child, and scapegoat roles. Everything I read was like someone had written the story of my childhood. Amanda had always been the favorite. The pretty one, The fun one? I was the responsible one. The one who never quite measured up. I started a journal writing down every incident I could remember. Every forgotten birthday. Every cruel comment disguised as a joke. Every time my accomplishments were brushed aside while Amanda's were celebrated. But I needed more than memories. I needed proof. So I made a decision. The next time we were all together, I'd record it. I'd get evidence that I wasn't making this up, that I wasn't crazy. What I didn't know was that my plan to gather evidence was about to make everything so much worse. That evening I checked my phone and my stomach dropped. There was a screenshot in my messages. Amanda had sent it claiming it was an accident. But I knew better. It was a group text. A family group text that didn't include me. The messages made my blood run cold. Linda wrote, "I'm really worried about B. I think she's having some kind of breakdown." Amanda replied, "I know. Making up stories about Mom. That's not normal." Frank added, "We might need to do an intervention. This has gone too far." Tom had even chimed in. "I'm concerned too. She's been really stressed lately." They were already planning. Already coordinating a narrative that I was unstable, that I was making things up. My attempt to protect my daughter was being twisted into evidence of my mental illness. I sat on my couch phone, trembling in my hands, and realized I'd just walked into a trap I didn't even know was being set. 3 days after the dinner from hell, my phone rang. It was my mother, her voice sweet as poisoned honey. "B, honey, can you come over? We really need to talk as a family. We love you so much." The word love coming from her mouth made my skin crawl, but Tom encouraged me to go. "Maybe they want to apologize," he said. "Give them a chance." I agreed, but I wasn't stupid. I brought my phone and my jacket pocket recording app ready. Harper was with Tom's parents for the afternoon. Safe. When I walked into my parents' house, I knew immediately something was wrong. Too many cars in the driveway. Too many voices inside. I stepped into the living room and froze. This wasn't a family talk. My mother and father sat on the couch. Amanda and Brad were there. But so was my mother's sister Carol, and Reverend Matthews from our church. All of them arranged in a circle with one empty chair in the middle. For me. "B, please sit down," Reverend Matthews said gently. "We're all here because we care about you." My heart started pounding. This was an intervention. An actual intervention. Like I was some kind of addict. I stayed standing. "What is this?" My mother's eyes filled with tears. "We're worried about your mental health, sweetheart." "I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me." Amanda leaned forward, her face the picture of concerned sisterhood. "B, you've been making these accusations against Mom. Wild stories about her saying horrible things. That's not normal." I heard what I heard. Carol spoke up then, her voice dripping with false compassion. "Sometimes mothers go through difficult periods. The stress of parenting work life. It can be overwhelming, nothing to be ashamed of." They kept going, tag-teaming me with their concern. They brought up my postpartum depression after Harper was born, twisting it into evidence of ongoing mental instability. They mentioned times I'd been moody as a teenager. They even claimed I'd been drinking too much lately, which was complete fiction. Frank pulled out brochures. "Therapists, mental health facilities. We think you need help, B. Real professional help." My hands were shaking. "I'm not crazy. Mom said what I know," she said. Reverend Matthews gave me a sad smile. "B, your family loves you. They're not your enemies. Sometimes our minds play tricks on us when we're under stress." I realized then what this was. They were building a case, creating a narrative that I was unstable, paranoid, unreliable. If I reported what my mother had said, who would believe me? The crazy daughter having a breakdown? But I had my ace. I'd been recording the whole time. And I had the recording from dinner too. I pulled out my phone. "You want proof? Here's proof." I played the recording from Sunday dinner. My mother's voice came through crystal clear. "We wish Amanda's kids were our only grandkids." The room went silent. I felt a surge of vindication. See, I told you. Then my mother's face changed. That recording is illegal, B. In Pennsylvania, you can't record people without their consent. You could go to jail for that. Reverend Matthews looked genuinely troubled. B, you've been secretly recording your family. That's exactly the kind of paranoid behavior we're talking about. Amanda stood up. You're trying to trap Mom with illegal recordings. This is worse than we thought. I felt the room tilting. My proof, my evidence had just become another weapon they could use against me. They twisted everything. The fact that I'd felt the need to record them just proved I was paranoid. The fact that I'd done it secretly proved I was unstable. I have to go, I managed to say, and I ran. I drove home crying so hard I could barely see the road. When I got there, Tom was already home, his face grave. I told him everything. I played him the recordings. He listened, but I could see the doubt creeping into his eyes. Why did you record them without telling anyone? Because I needed proof. But now they can use that against you. They can say you're paranoid and secretive. I am not paranoid. I was protecting myself. Tom rubbed his face. I believe that you believe what you heard. But B, this has gotten so out of control. First the accusations, now illegal recordings and intervention. Don't you see how this looks? I see that my own husband doesn't believe me. That's not fair. But it was fair. Because I could see it in his eyes. The tiny seed of doubt they'd planted was taking root. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, feeling utterly alone. Even Tom, who'd promised to love me through everything, was wavering. The next day, an envelope arrived. Certified mail. I signed for it with shaking hands. Inside was a cease and desist letter from a lawyer. My parents were threatening to sue me for defamation and harassment if I continued spreading lies about them. The letter specifically mentioned the illegal recordings as evidence of my unstable mental state. But the worst part was the last paragraph. We are deeply concerned about our granddaughter Harper's welfare and safety. We may be forced to contact the appropriate authorities if this behavior continues. They were threatening to call Child Protective Services on me. I sat at my kitchen table, the letter in front of me, and felt my world crumbling. Every move I'd made to protect Harper, to stand up for her, had been turned against me. They were better at this game than I'd ever imagined. That evening, my phone rang. It was my boss, Janet, from the marketing firm where I worked as a graphic designer. B, can you come in tomorrow morning? We need to talk. My stomach sank. About what? It's better if we discuss it in person. I knew. Somehow I already knew. The next morning I sat in Janet's office while she shuffled papers uncomfortably. We received a call from someone expressing concern about your mental health. They mentioned you're going through some personal issues and questioned whether you're currently fit to work with clients. Who called? She wouldn't say. But B, our clients trust us with their brands. We can't have any hint of instability. I think it would be best if you took a leave of absence, just until you get things sorted out. A leave of absence. Unpaid, of course. How long? Let's say a month to start. Then we can reassess. I walked out of that office knowing I'd just lost my job. Not officially fired, but pushed out just the same. My attempt to gather evidence had cost me my livelihood. I sat in my car in the parking lot and finally let myself break down completely. I'd lost my family. My husband was doubting me. And now my job was gone. All because I'd stood up for my daughter. All because I'd refused to let them hurt Harper without consequences. And they were just getting started. 1 week after that horrible intervention, my doorbell rang at 9 a.m. I was still in my pajamas, hadn't slept more than a few hours, surviving on coffee and anxiety. A woman stood on my porch with a clipboard and a sympathetic smile that made my blood run cold. B. Harrison, I'm Janet Walker with Child Protective Services. May I come in? My worst nightmare had come true. They'd actually done it. My parents had called CPS on me. Of course, I said, stepping aside. My hands were trembling. Janet was professional and thorough. She walked through every room of my house, opening cabinets, checking the refrigerator, looking in Harper's bedroom. Everything was clean, organized, normal. Because I was a good mother. I'd always been a good mother. I understand there have been some concerns raised about your mental health, she said as we sat at my kitchen table. I explained everything. The cruel comment at dinner, my parents gaslighting the intervention, the recordings. With every word I could hear how crazy it sounded. A family conspiracy to make me look unstable. Who would believe that? Janet took notes. I see. And you're currently unemployed. I'm on a leave of absence from work. Personal reasons. She wrote that down too. I could see how it looked. Unemployed, making wild accusations against her family, secretly recording people, paranoid, unstable. I'd like to speak with Harper if that's okay. Alone. Harper was at school. Tom would have to bring her home. When he arrived with our daughter an hour later, his face was a mask of controlled anger. What's going on, B? They called CPS on me. His jaw tightened, but he didn't say anything. Just kissed Harper on the forehead and left her with Janet and me. I sat in the living room while Janet talked to Harper in the kitchen. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I knew what Harper would tell her. The truth. That Grandma had said something mean, but also that Mommy had been sad and crying a lot lately. That was the thing about the truth. It could be twisted so easily. After 30 minutes, Janet emerged. Harper ran to me, hugging me tight. Mrs. Harrison, I'm going to leave the case open for 30 days. I don't see any immediate concerns, but given the ongoing family situation and your current employment status, we'll be monitoring the situation. After she left, Tom exploded. CPSB. They called CPS on you. I didn't do anything wrong. But this is affecting Harper. Don't you see that? What's affecting Harper is that my parents are emotionally abusive, and I won't let them get away with it. Tom ran his hands through his hair. I need to think. I need space. He left, just like that. Took his overnight bag and went to stay with his parents. Said he needed to clear his head. That's when the money problems really hit. My leave of absence was unpaid. Tom's salary covered most of our bills, but not all. We lived comfortably, but like most Americans, we were only a couple of paychecks away from disaster. I started applying to other jobs, but my current employer wouldn't give a good reference. On leave for personal issues was code for problem employee. And I couldn't explain the situation in interviews without sounding exactly like what they'd painted me as. Credit card bills started piling up. The mortgage payment loomed. I sold some jewelry, my good camera, anything of value. But it wasn't enough. Tom suggested asking his parents for a loan. I couldn't. Wouldn't. Not after everything. The tension in our marriage grew like mold in darkness. Every conversation became an argument. Every silence felt like judgment. And then Amanda started her social media campaign. First post. Praying for family members going through mental health crises. Remember to be compassionate, even when they lash out at those who love them most. Heart emoji. Praying hands emoji. Second post. A photo of the twins with my parents at the park. So grateful. My children have such loving, devoted grandparents who would do anything for them. Third post. Sometimes the hardest thing is watching someone you love refuse help. All we can do is pray and keep the door open for when they're ready. My phone started blowing up. Friends, extended family, people I barely knew, all reaching out with their concern. My cousin Sarah called. B, what's going on? Your mom says you're refusing to get help. I tried to explain, tried to tell my side, but Sarah sounded skeptical. B, I love you, but this sounds really far-fetched. Why would your mom lie about this? Why indeed? That was the question no one could answer. Because normal parents don't do this. Normal families don't wage coordinated psychological warfare. But my family wasn't normal. I was finally seeing that. More posts from Amanda. More whispers. The court of public opinion had decided I was guilty. Guilty of being crazy. Guilty of attacking my innocent parents. Guilty of dragging my family through the mud. If I defended myself, I looked obsessed. If I stayed silent, the lies spread unchallenged. I was trapped. Tom and I had our worst fight 3 weeks after he'd moved out. He came by to see Harper, and we ended up screaming at each other in the driveway while Harper watched from her bedroom window. "Maybe you should just apologize," Tom said. "Just smooth this over so you can go back to work. Think about Harper." "Apologize for what?" "For them abusing our daughter." "They didn't abuse her. They said something thoughtless. You've turned this into World War III. I stared at my husband and realized he didn't believe me. Not really. He thought I was overreacting, being too sensitive, making it worse. "This war with your family is hurting Harper more than one comment ever," Cody said. That was when I knew he'd chosen his side, and it wasn't mine. I went to see a lawyer about the harassment about grandparents' rights about protecting myself. She listened to my story with professional detachment. In Pennsylvania, grandparents can petition for custody if they can prove the parents are unfit. The CPS investigation, even though it's unfounded, gives them ammunition. Combined with your job loss and the family conflict, a judge might consider temporary custody with them. I felt sick. They could actually take Harper from me. The lawyer looked at me with pity. "My advice? Document everything. Stay calm, be the stable parent, and try to resolve this out of court if possible." But resolution wasn't possible, because this was never about one comment. It was about control. It was about putting me in my place. My phone buzzed. An email from Amanda. I almost deleted it, but something made me open it. "B, I know you're hurting. I hate seeing you like this. Can we meet for coffee? Just us sisters. I want to help you fix this. Please. For Harper." I was so desperate, so isolated, so exhausted, that I actually considered it. Maybe Amanda could be reasoned with. Maybe she could convince Mom to back off. So I agreed. 2 days later, I met Amanda at a coffee shop downtown. She hugged me when I arrived, and for just a moment, I let myself believe she cared. We talked for an hour. I vented. I cried. I told her how alone I felt, how scared I was of losing Harper, how much I wished things could go back to normal. "Don't you sometimes wish they'd just disappear?" Amanda asked gently. "Mom and Dad just vanish and leave you alone." "Sometimes, yes. I'm so tired of fighting them." Amanda nodded sympathetically. "I understand. Believe me, I do. They can be a lot." I left that coffee shop feeling slightly better. Like maybe, just maybe, I had an ally in my sister. What I didn't know was that Amanda had been recording me. The whole conversation. Every word. 2 days later, I got a notice. A restraining order had been filed against me by Linda and Frank Harrison. I was not allowed within 500 feet of them. The grounds, threats of violence. Attached to the court documents was an audio recording. My voice edited and spliced together to make it sound like I was threatening to hurt my parents. Amanda had taken my words, cut them up, and rearranged them into something monstrous. "Don't you sometimes wish they'd disappear?" became "I wish they'd disappear." "I'm so tired of fighting them" became "I'm tired of them." Splice it all together with ominous music and dark implications, and suddenly I sounded like I was planning something terrible. Tom came over that evening, his face red with fury. "What did you say to Amanda?" "Nothing. I just vented." "She set me up, Tom. She recorded me and edited it." Jesus Christ, B. A restraining order against your own parents. "I didn't threaten anyone. The recording is fake." Or maybe you did say those things, and you're not seeing yourself clearly. That was it. The final straw. My husband thought I was capable of threatening violence against my own parents. The restraining order included Harper. Because Linda and Frank claimed they feared I might use their granddaughter to access them, Harper was included in the 500-foot restriction. Since my parents lived in the same town, this essentially trapped me. I couldn't go to Harper's school events because they might show up, couldn't go to church, couldn't go to half the stores in town. I was a prisoner in my own life. And everyone believed I deserved it. 3 weeks after the restraining order, I sat in a courtroom wearing the only professional outfit that still fit. I'd lost 15 pounds from stress and not eating. My hands shook as I tried to take notes. The judge, a tired-looking woman in her 50s, reviewed the restraining order petition. My parents had hired a slick lawyer named Richard Chambers, who wore a suit that cost more than my car. I couldn't afford a lawyer. I was representing myself. Chambers stood up, his voice smooth and confident. "Your Honor, my clients are simply concerned grandparents who fear for their safety. Miss Harrison has made repeated threats and accusations." He presented the edited recording. My voice twisted and sinister. He brought up the illegal recordings I'd made. The CPS investigation. My job loss. My history of postpartum depression. He called my mother to the stand. Linda cried on cue, testifying about how scared she was of her own daughter, how I'd changed, how I'd become paranoid and angry. My father testified that I'd always been difficult, but this was worse than anything before. Amanda testified that she was terrified I'd hurt our parents in a rage. When it was my turn to speak, I tried to explain. The cruel comment, the gaslighting, the setup. But with each word, I could see the judge's eyes glazing over. She'd heard stories like this before. Bitter family feuds. Adult children making accusations. The judge granted a temporary restraining order. 60 days. A full hearing would be scheduled, but for now, I had to stay away from my parents. And from Harper, since she was listed on the order as potentially being used to violate it. Tom was in the courtroom. As I walked out humiliated and defeated, I saw Amanda sitting in the back row. She wasn't even trying to hide her smile. That night, Tom dropped the bomb I'd been dreading. "I think we need some space, B." He was standing in our bedroom, a duffel bag in his hand. "You're leaving me. Now." I don't know what to believe anymore. That recording Amanda has sounds really bad. It was edited. She set me up. Or maybe you said those things, and you're not remembering clearly. Maybe everyone else is right, and you're not seeing yourself objectively. So you think I'm crazy too. I think you need help. Professional help. And until you get it, I think Harper needs stability. My chest tightened. What does that mean? It means I'm filing for temporary custody. No. Tom, no. Please. B, I'm worried. The restraining order, CPS. Losing your job, this obsession with your parents. Harper needs a stable home. I'm her mother. And I'm her father. And right now, I'm the parent who's thinking clearly. Harper appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide with fear. "Daddy, Mommy. What's happening?" Tom knelt down, hugging her. "We're just going to stay with Grandma and Grandpa Mitchell for a little while, sweetheart. Just until Mommy feels better." I watched my husband pack a bag for my daughter. I watched him gather her favorite stuffed animals, her books, her clothes. I watched him take away the only thing in the world that mattered to me. Harper clung to me at the door. "I love you, Mommy. I love you too, baby. So much." When they left, I sank to the floor and cried until I couldn't breathe. I'd lost everything. My family, my job, my husband, and now my child. I sat alone in that empty house and considered giving up completely. Then my phone buzzed. An email from an unknown address. Subject line, "I know what they did." I opened it with shaking hands. The message was short. "I know what they did. I can help you. Check your mother's financials. Look for anything unusual from 3 years ago. A friend." It could have been a trap. Another setup. But I was already at the bottom. How much further could I fall? I knew my mother's email password. She'd used the same one for 20 years. I hacked into her account, heart-pounding, knowing this was probably illegal, but not caring anymore. I found emails between Linda and Amanda going back 6 months. My hands shook as I read them. Amanda, to Linda. "Are you sure about this plan? It seems extreme." Linda to Amanda B. has always thought she was better than us. It's time someone took her down a peg. Besides, if we play this right, we can get custody of Harper. Raise her properly without B's influence. Amanda to Linda. What about Tom? Linda to Amanda. Tom will do what's best for Harper. And what's best is having family who actually love her. We just need to make B look unstable enough that he has no choice. I read through months of plotting. The cruel comment at dinner had been deliberate, a test to see how I'd react. When I did exactly what they'd predicted, they'd activated their plan. The intervention. The CPS call. The edited recording. All of it orchestrated. But the emails were vague enough that they didn't explicitly admit to fraud or conspiracy. They were carefully worded deniable. I kept digging. 3 hours later I found something else. Something that made my breath stop. An email chain from 3 years ago about borrowing $50,000 from Frank's Aunt Margaret. The loan was supposedly for Harper's private school tuition. My mother had told Margaret that I was struggling financially and too proud to ask for help. I'd never received that money. Harper attended public school. We'd never needed private school tuition. Linda and Frank had borrowed $50,000 using my name and daughter as bait, then kept the money for themselves. Aunt Margaret had died last year, believing she'd helped her great niece. She died thinking I was too proud to thank her. I found more emails. Linda to Amanda. Thank God Margaret died before she asked too many questions about Harper's education. That money saved us from bankruptcy. They'd stolen from a dying woman and let her think I was an ungrateful daughter. I screenshot everything, downloaded it all to a flash drive. But I knew these were illegally obtained. Just like the recordings, anything I tried to use would be turned against me as more evidence of my paranoid obsession. I needed a better plan. I responded to the anonymous email. Who are you and why are you helping me? The response came an hour later. Meet me tomorrow, 3 p.m. The diner on Maple Street. I'll be wearing a red jacket. I shouldn't have gone. It could have been another trap. But I was so desperate for an ally, for someone who believed me, that I went anyway. The man in the red jacket was the last person I expected. Brad, Amanda's husband. He looked terrible. Unshaven, exhausted, angry. Why are you helping me? I asked, sliding into the booth across from him. Because I'm tired of being part of their lies. And because I just found out what they did to me too. He pushed a manila folder across the table. Bank statements, financial records, documents. I couldn't begin to understand. Your mother has been embezzling from your father's accounting firm for 6 years. Small amounts from different clients. It adds up to over $230,000. I stared at the numbers, my mind reeling. Amanda found out 2 years ago. Linda cut her in. They've been using the money to fund their lifestyle. The trips, the renovations, the twins' private school. And you knew? Not until last week. I'm an accountant. I recognized the signs. That's when I started digging. That's when I realized my wife and mother-in-law are criminals. Why tell me? Because they set me up too. They hired a private investigator to catch me having an affair. They got photos, evidence, everything. But here's the thing, B. I wasn't actually having an affair. What? The woman in the photos. She's a work colleague. We were working late on a project. They made it look like something it wasn't, then made sure Amanda found out. They wanted to blow up my marriage to make you look bad by association. Family drama chaos. You not telling Amanda about my supposed affair. It would make you look like a terrible sister. I felt sick. How far does this go? All the way down. They've been planning this for almost a year. The comment at dinner was the trigger. Everything else was choreographed. Can you testify to this? That's where it gets complicated. If I go to the police, I'll be implicated too. I've been doing their taxes. Even though I didn't know about the embezzlement, a prosecutor could argue I should have caught it. I could lose my license. Go to jail. So what do we do? Brad leaned forward. We're very careful. Very smart. And we take them down without destroying ourselves in the process. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. Then Brad's phone rang. He looked at the screen, and his face went pale. "It's Amanda. I have to take this." He walked outside. Through the diner window, I could see him talking, his body language shifting from defensive to resigned. When he came back in, everything had changed. "I'm sorry, B. I can't help you." "What? Why?" "Amanda knows I'm here. She knows I talked to you. And she just reminded me that if I testify against her or Linda, I'll lose everything. My license. My freedom. My kids. Brad, please." He stood up, leaving the folder. "I'm sorry. You're on your own." He left. I sat in that booth looking at the financial documents and realized I'd been handed a bomb. Evidence of real crimes. But evidence that would explode in my face the moment I tried to use it. My phone buzzed. A text from Tom. "Filing the custody petition tomorrow. It's for the best." Then another text, this one from an unknown number. "Nice try with Brad, but he's family. He'll always choose us. Give up, B. You've already lost." It was Amanda. I drove home in a daze. That night I sat on my couch staring at the wall, the folder of evidence on my coffee table. I could go to the police. Report the embezzlement. But they'd say I hacked Linda's email, that I was retaliating with false accusations, that this was more proof of my instability. Every move I made got turned against me. Every attempt to defend myself became ammunition for them. I was checkmate. 4 weeks after that Sunday dinner that had destroyed my life, I sat in another courtroom. This time for the custody hearing. I'd sold my wedding ring to afford a lawyer. Her name was Karen, and she was young and earnest and overworked. She'd reviewed my case and told me honestly, "This is bad, B. Really bad. We need character witnesses and proof of stability." I had neither. Tom's lawyer was expensive and good. He called witness after witness. Tom's parents testifying about how they'd taken Harper in because I was unstable. My former boss carefully stating that I'd been placed on leave due to personal issues. Even my pastor from church explaining how concerned the congregation was about my mental health. The restraining order was entered as evidence. The CPS investigation. My unemployment. The edited recording of me supposedly threatening violence. When it was my turn, Karen did her best. She called me to the stand. I explained everything, trying to make it sound rational and believable, but with every word I could see the judge's skepticism growing. Then Tom's lawyer called Harper to testify. My baby girl, so small in that big chair, was asked where she wanted to live. "I want to live with Daddy," she whispered, "just until Mommy feels better." Those words destroyed me, not because she was lying, but because she believed it, believed I was sick and needed to get better. They'd convinced my own daughter that I was the problem. The judge took only 15 minutes to deliberate. Temporary full custody is granted to the father. The mother will have supervised visitation twice weekly for 2 hours per session. We'll revisit this in 60 days. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Karen squeezed my hand, but I barely felt it. Supervised visitation. Like I was a danger to my own child. I walked out of that courtroom and straight into a nightmare that was about to get worse. Amanda was waiting by her car, her phone out. As I passed, she called out loudly enough for everyone to hear. "B, I know you're desperate, but trying to frame Mom and Dad for crimes they didn't commit, that's too far." People turned to stare. Tom's parents were there. Other families from Harper's school. The court-appointed supervisor for my visits. I tried to ignore her, but she followed me. Using Brad to create fake financial documents. Making up stories about embezzlement. You need serious help. I spun around. You know those documents are real. She smiled cold and triumphant. You hacked Mom's email. You fabricated evidence. Brad told me everything. He was wearing a wire when you met with him, by the way. We have you on tape trying to get him to lie to the authorities. The parking lot was spinning. Brad had betrayed me completely. My phone buzzed. The documents I'd been sent, the screenshots I'd taken, all of them, had opened with tracking software. Amanda knew I'd accessed them, knew I had them. And now she'd created a narrative that I'd fabricated them as revenge. That night, I got another email. This one from a lawyer representing Linda, Frank, and Amanda. We are filing charges against you for attempted fraud, harassment, stalking, and conspiracy to file false reports with law enforcement. We have substantial evidence of your campaign to destroy your family's reputation with fabricated accusations. They were coming for me with everything, and I had no defense. Tom called. His voice was cold. Stay away from us, B. What you tried to do to your parents using fake financial records, that's criminal. I won't let Harper be exposed to someone willing to commit fraud to win a custody battle. It's not fraud. It's real. They stole money from Brad's aunt. They've been embezzling. Do you hear yourself? You sound paranoid, delusional. You need to check yourself into a facility before you end up in jail. He hung up. I sat in my empty house completely alone. No job, no money, no family, no husband, no daughter, and now facing criminal charges for trying to expose the truth. Amanda's Facebook post went up that night. A long, heartfelt plea for prayers. My heart is breaking for my sister. She's going through something I can't understand. She's made terrible accusations against our loving parents. She's lost custody of her daughter. She's tried to frame our family with fake financial documents. Please pray for her healing and for my niece Harper's safety. Mental illness is devastating, but we won't give up on her. We'll keep the door open for when she's ready to accept help. The post got shared hundreds of times. Comments poured in. Most supported Amanda. A few questioned the story. Those people got attacked by Amanda's friends. I couldn't go to the grocery store without whispers. Couldn't pick up my mail without neighbors staring. My church asked me to stop attending until things settled down. I was completely isolated. Completely destroyed. And they weren't done yet. The next morning, police showed up at my door. A detective named Morrison. He was professional but firm. Ma'am, we've received reports that you're planning to leave the state with your daughter. That would be a violation of the custody agreement. I'm not planning to leave. Harper isn't even here. We also have reports that you've been creating fraudulent financial documents to frame your parents for embezzlement. Those documents are real. They're guilty. Ma'am, hacking into someone's email is a crime. Creating fake documents is a crime. Making false reports is a crime. I'm here to warn you that if you continue down this path, you will be arrested. After he left, I called Karen, my lawyer. They're going to arrest me, I said. They're going to put me in jail and take Harper forever. B, you need to stop. Stop investigating. Stop making accusations. Just stop. Focus on being stable for Harper. That's all that matters now. But they're criminals. They stole money. They framed me. Then let the authorities handle it. But you need to step back before you destroy what little you have left. I hung up and stared at the wall. Everything I'd done to fight back had only made it worse. Every piece of evidence I'd found had been turned into proof of my guilt. I was trapped in a nightmare where the truth didn't matter, where the villains won because they were better at playing the game. That night, I sat in my bathroom with a bottle of sleeping pills. Not the first time I'd considered it in the past month, but the first time I'd actually opened the bottle. I poured pills into my hand. 30 of them. Enough. I thought about Harper, about how she'd grow up thinking her mother was crazy, thinking I'd abandoned her, but maybe that was better than watching me go to jail, better than seeing me destroyed piece by piece. My phone rang. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Unknown number. Hello. My voice was dead empty. B. Harrison. This is Helen Carpenter. We met briefly at Margaret's funeral last year. We need to talk. I know what Linda did to you, and I know what she did to my mother. I dropped the pills. Helen Carpenter was 62 years old, with steel gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. We met at her house in the next town, away from prying eyes and recording devices. She made tea. Real tea in real china cups. the kind of civilized gesture that felt alien in my current life. My mother was Margaret Riley Frank's aunt. She died last year thinking she'd helped you and Harper. I know. I'm so sorry. Helen's jaw tightened. Don't apologize. Linda and Frank stole from her. They used your name to do it. And I've spent the last year figuring out exactly how deep their fraud goes. She opened a briefcase and pulled out documents. Real ones this time. Origami folder, legal papers, bank statements with official stamps. I'm a retired federal prosecutor, B. When my mother died and left me everything, I went through her finances. That's when I found the check to Linda and Frank. $50,000 for Harper's private school tuition. Harper goes to public school. I know. I talked to you at Mom's funeral, remember? You mentioned Harper loved her third-grade teacher at Lincoln Elementary. That's when I knew something was wrong. Helen spread the documents across her dining room table. She'd been investigating for a year. She'd subpoenaed records legally. She'd hired a forensic accountant. She'd built an actual case. Linda has been embezzling from Frank's firm for 6 years. Over $230,000. She's been skimming small amounts from client accounts, hiding it in the books. Some of those clients are interstate businesses, which makes it a federal crime. You're sure? I'm positive. I've already contacted the FBI. They've been building a case for the last 3 months. I started crying. Relief, validation, exhaustion, all of it pouring out at once. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because they'd already destroyed your credibility. If you'd known, you'd have reacted. They'd have spun it as more of your paranoid accusations. I needed you to not know. To keep acting like someone who'd given up. It was the only way to make sure they didn't destroy evidence. Brad said he'd help me. Then he betrayed me. Brad is weak. Amanda controls him. But he's not actually complicit in the embezzlement. He was doing their taxes based on fraudulent books. We can prove he didn't know. What do I do now? You lay low. You go to your supervised visits with Harper. You act stable and beaten down. Let them think they've won. The FBI will move when they're ready. When? Soon. Very soon. I left Helen's house feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. For the next week, I did exactly what she'd said. I went to my supervised visits with Harper. I was calm, loving, present. Harper slowly warmed back up to me. The supervisor noted in her reports that I was appropriate and stable. I ignored Amanda's texts, ignored the whispers at the grocery store, focused only on being the mother Harper needed. 1 week later, at 6 a.m, it happened. FBI agents arrived at Linda and Frank's house with a warrant. They also went to Amanda and Brad's house. The charges were federal wire fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Linda, Frank, and Amanda were arrested, handcuffed, read their rights, put in the back of federal vehicles while neighbors watched. The local news picked it up by noon. Local accountant and family arrested in embezzlement scheme. Over $200,000 stolen from clients and family members. My phone started ringing. People who'd believed Linda's lies about me suddenly had questions. The tide was turning. But Amanda had one last card to play. From jail, using her one phone call, she called CPS. She filed an emergency report claiming that I had Harper and was planning to flee the state. She said I was dangerous, unstable, that Harper was in immediate danger. Even though Harper was with Tom at his parents' house. Even though it was a complete lie. The police showed up at my house with CPS. They expected to find a kidnapping in progress. Instead, they found me alone eating cereal at my kitchen table. Mrs. Harrison, where is your daughter? With her father. At his parents' house. Where she's been for the past month. They verified it, called Tom, confirmed Harper's location, but the damage was done. The false report triggered an automatic emergency custody hearing. Even though Amanda had filed it maliciously from jail, even though it was obviously false, the system had to respond. 2 days later, I sat in yet another courtroom. Tom's lawyer argued that the chaos around me, even though I wasn't causing it, was harmful to Harper. that even my vindication had come with arrests and scandal. Judge, my client just wants stability for his daughter. Mrs. Harrison's parents and sister were just arrested for federal crimes. This is not a stable environment for a child regardless of who's at fault. Karen argued back. My client has been proven right. She was telling the truth all along. The very people who accused her of being unstable are now facing federal charges. The judge looked exhausted. She'd seen too many families destroy themselves in her courtroom. I'm extending the temporary custody arrangement for another 60 days. By then, hopefully, this situation will be more settled. The supervised visitation will continue. I lost again. Even though I'd been vindicated, even though I'd been right, Harper was still with Tom. Amanda's final revenge, even from jail, had worked. I walked out of that courtroom and found Tom waiting by his car. I'm sorry, B. I was wrong. About everything. Yes, you were. I should have believed you. I should have stood by you. But you didn't. Tom's face crumpled. I know, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you and Harper. If you'll let me. I'm not ready to forgive you yet. I understand. But I am ready to fight for my daughter. Together if you're actually with me this time. I am. I swear. It wasn't a happy ending, not yet. But it was a beginning. 6 weeks after that terrible Sunday dinner, Linda and Frank's trial date was set. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank records, client testimony, emails admitting to the theft, Helen's documentation of the $50,000 stolen from Margaret. The local news covered it extensively. Friends of Linda and Frank were shocked. How could such nice people do something so terrible? That was always the question. How could they? Because people who do terrible things aren't monsters. They're often charming, respected, normal-looking. They're your parents, your neighbors, your friends. The financial scope was worse than even Helen had known. $230,000 over 6 years. Dozens of victims. Some were Frank's clients who'd lost their savings. Others were family members who'd loaned money that was never repaid. Amanda had taken $40,000 for herself over 2 years. She'd known what Linda was doing and demanded a cut to stay quiet. Frank's negligence was criminal too. He'd turned a blind eye to his own books being cooked because he didn't want to know. Willful ignorance. They all faced federal prison time. The story exploded in our small town. Amanda's Facebook posts got dug up and shared with new context. People who'd attacked me online suddenly deleted their comments. Some apologized. Most just stayed silent. Reverend Matthews called to apologize for participating in the intervention. Your family was very convincing, B. I'm sorry I doubted you. I accepted his apology, but I never went back to that church. Some wounds don't heal just because someone says sorry. Tom moved back home 3 weeks after the arrests. Not because everything was fixed, but because we both wanted to try. For Harper. For ourselves. For the family we'd almost lost. We started couples counseling, the kind that actually worked with a therapist who understood trauma and manipulation and gaslighting. Tom had to face how badly he'd failed me, how he'd chosen peace over truth, convenience over courage. It was hard work, painful work. But slowly, we rebuilt. The emergency custody order was eventually lifted. 6 months after that Sunday dinner, Harper moved back home. Full-time. No more supervised visits. Just family. But Harper was different. She'd learned that love could be conditional. That people who smiled at you could hurt you. That family wasn't always safe. We got her a good therapist. A woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, who specialized in children and family trauma. Slowly, Harper started to process what had happened. One night she asked me, "Mommy, did Grandma and Grandpa ever really love me?" I thought about lying. About telling her what parents are supposed to tell their children. But Harper deserved the truth. I think they loved the idea of you. But real love means wanting what's best for someone even when it's hard. Real love means protecting someone, not hurting them. What they did wasn't real love. Harper nodded slowly. I love you, Mommy. Real love. I love you too, baby. So much. Linda was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison. Frank got 12 months and 3 years probation. Amanda got 12 months. Brad divorced her while she was in prison. He got custody of the twins. He moved to another state to start over. I never went to their sentencing. I didn't need to see them punished. I needed to heal. Some people in town expected me to celebrate, to gloat. But revenge had never been the point. Justice wasn't about making them suffer. It was about the truth being known. Helen and I became friends. She attended Harper's birthday party that year. She gave Harper a book about strong women in history. Inside, she wrote, "Never apologize for being right. Love Aunt Helen." Harper called her Aunt Helen after that. The good kind of family. The chosen kind. Tom's relationship with his parents was strained. They doubted me too, encouraged him to leave me. He had hard conversations with them about loyalty and trust. They're still working on it. My job, I never went back. I started my own freelance graphic design business. Working from home, setting my own hours, choosing my own clients. It's not as stable, but I learned something important. I don't need stability that depends on other people's approval. The community eventually moved on to the next scandal. Some people still looked at me funny at the grocery store. But most forgot. That's the thing about small-town drama. It always fades when something newer comes along. 1 year after that Sunday dinner, Tom and I renewed our vows. Small ceremony, just Harper, Helen, a few real friends, no big family. Because we'd learned that family isn't who you're born to. It's who shows up when everything falls apart. Harper read a poem she'd written at the ceremony. It was about flowers growing through concrete, about being strong and soft at the same time, about mothers who fight for their daughters. I cried, Tom cried, Helen cried. Harper smiled, proud and healing, and ours. Linda sent letters from prison. I never opened them. They went straight into the recycling bin. Some people don't deserve your forgiveness. Some bridges should stay burned. Amanda sent one letter too. It said she was sorry that she'd been under Linda's control her whole life, that she wanted to reconnect when she got out. I thought about it for a long time. Then I wrote back. No. One word. That's all she got. Because forgiveness is a gift, not an obligation, and some people haven't earned it. 2 years after that Sunday dinner, Harper and I were planting flowers in our new garden. We'd moved to a different town. Fresh start, new schools, new friends who didn't know our story. "Mommy Harper," said her hands dirty with soil, "are we going to be okay?" "Yes, sweetheart, we already are." She smiled and went back to planting. Tom brought out lemonade. We sat on our porch as the sun set, just the three of us. I thought about that Sunday dinner sometimes, the moment that broke everything open, the cruel words that started the avalanche. We wish Amanda's kids were our only grandkids. My mother had gotten her wish. Amanda's kids were the only grandkids she'd ever see, because Harper was done with them. And so was I. But Harper, she got something better. She got parents who chose to fight for her, who chose truth over comfort, who chose her over everything else. She got to grow up knowing that love doesn't hurt, that family protects, that speaking up is worth the cost. And she got to see her mother stand up, dust herself off, and keep going. That's a better legacy than any grandparent could give. 3 days after that dinner, I'd said their lives would fall apart. And they did. But it wasn't revenge. It was consequences. Because the truth always comes out eventually. It might take time. It might cost everything. But it comes out. And when it does, you get to decide what kind of person you'll be on the other side of it. I chose to be the kind of person who teaches her daughter that dignity isn't given. It's claimed. That love means standing up, not backing down. That some battles are worth losing everything to win. My parents wanted Amanda's kids to be their only grandkids. They got their wish. But we got something better. We got each other. We got truth. We got peace. and that's worth more than any Sunday dinner at their table could ever be. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who tried to make you doubt your own reality? How did you handle it? What would you have done in my situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and your stories help other people know they're not alone. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and realize they're not crazy for standing up to toxic family dynamics. And if you want to hear more stories about overcoming family betrayal, workplace injustice, and finding strength when everyone doubts you, please subscribe to this channel. We share new stories every week, and I promise each one will leave you feeling empowered and validated. Finally, if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone who's being gaslit by their family or doubting themselves, please share this video with them. Sometimes people need to know that standing up for yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it gave you strength, validation, or at least the knowledge that you're not alone in your struggles. Remember, protecting the people you love sometimes means standing alone. And that's okay. You're stronger than you think. Until next time, take care of yourselves and keep fighting for what's right. You're worth it.